Hello and welcome to 10 Things Your Mouse Can Do, presented by LunchLesson.com. In this lesson, we're going to go into 10 or more things, actually, that your mouse can do for you. So, starting right off, one of the first topics we're going to do is go into stuff you can do without a mouse button. We're all used to clicking and right-clicking, but we'll get into what pointing and hovering can do for you. Of course, we'll cover the left button that does clicking, double-clicking, and click and drag. And then, of course, the right mouse button that does all those same things. And then we're going to go into the secret third button where you use both. Scroll wheel, of course, it does up and down scrolling. Did you know you could do left and right scrolling? And then there's even click scrolling. And the final thing that we'll go into is what happens when you add keyboard keys. So you can select multiple items and change the way things copy and move. So we'll start right off with no button. Without a button, what's a mouse? Well, it points. It can point at things. So you can point first. This is one of the first techniques, one of the first skills you should learn with your mouse is how to point at stuff and give it time to do things. For instance, on many web pages, pointing actually gives you more than what you originally see. Pointing can trigger an action. For instance, on a website, you have a navigation bar up at the top. It has all these little tabs that you can punch out, or you can push a button and go somewhere. Well, if you point at it instead of clicking it right off the bat, maybe you'll see a list of places to go. And so you point, scroll down a little bit and click what you want to go to, and you go right there. If you just click the button, then you end up going to a page that has all those same options. So you might save yourself a little bit of time web browsing. And in programs like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel in 2007, there's this interesting feature that we go into in some of the other classes about Microsoft Word and Excel, and the 2007 interface, which is significantly different than it's been in the past. One of the things that it has is this really neat feature where you highlight some words, and as you move your mouse toward the highlighted words, it brings up this other little menu of the most commonly used things, like changing the formatting and doing spell check and stuff like that, without having to right click, without having to click at all. Now, if you click somewhere after it's been highlighted, it goes away. And if you pull your mouse away from it and try to come back, not going to happen. It's only when you first highlight things. And then the second thing that happens with a mouse that has no buttons, or one where you're not using the buttons, is hovering. So pointing can do some actions just right off the bat. Just pointing at something makes something happen. But now hovering is a skill that many people just cannot master because it requires patience. And it's basically letting the mouse sit there for a second. Let it rest right on top of an item, an icon, some text that you've selected, whatever. Just put it there and let it sit. On websites in particular, you'll see this, and it's got a term. Inside a program, they call it mouse over, when your mouse is over top of something. Or in the websites, they call it alt text. So if you're ever someplace and it asks you, like you're creating a website or something, and it asks you what you want your alt text to be, that's the words that'll pop up when somebody puts their mouse on top and lets it sit, if they're patient enough to do it. All right, now clicking. We're going to get into the left mouse button. And of course we know it clicks, double clicks, and click and drag and things like that. But do you really know what clicking means and the difference between clicking and dragging? So first off, clicking is two separate actions. One, pushing the button down, and two, releasing that button and selecting whatever happens. See, in most programs, actions aren't taken when you click down. It's when you let go of the mouse. Where that comes in handy is, say you're on a screen and it says, do you want to delete all your items on the entire computer, yes or no? And you accidentally click yes because it's in the place where you usually do things. Or maybe there's an OK button and you're used to just kind of hitting OK on everything. And then it dawns on you, whoa, wait, I did, I'm already clicking on the word OK. If you catch yourself in time, you can drag your mouse over to the right with the button held down till you get off of that OK button, and then let go. And when you let go of the button, then the action happens, which in this case, there'd be no action. But if you click it and let go, then the action happens. And in some programs, when you click down, that's when the action happens. So to make the mouse actually click or double click, one of the hardest things for some folks is to do that without the mouse jiggling around on them. So as you click something, the mouse kind of scoots a little bit to the left or right, because a lot of times I found this when teaching 5-year-olds and when teaching 80-year-olds, they have the same issue, and it's that they try to click or double click especially, and they have problems because it's real challenging for them to go really fast because they don't have the dexterity in their finger muscles, so they use like their whole arm or their wrist muscles to do the clicking, and that makes the whole mouse move. One way to get around that, by the way, is to buy yourself a trackball instead of a mouse. If you have a trackball, you wiggle this little ball until the mouse pointer is where you want it, and then it doesn't matter the whole thing that you put your hand on top of, the little mouse part. It doesn't matter if that scoots around because the ball is what puts it there. If you haven't seen a trackball, I'll have a picture at the end of the presentation. Alright, so anyway, on to the other side, the right mouse button, which does all the same stuff that the left side does, clicking, double clicking, which most people aren't used to doing with the right mouse button, and clicking and dragging, another one that a lot of people don't do that's really got a lot to it. So we're going to start right there, right click and drag. This is incredibly powerful. You'd be amazed at what you can do when you right click and drag stuff. Try it. Go into a word processing document, highlight some text, click and drag with the left mouse button. Then do the same thing with the right mouse button. What happens? Same thing in, say, Microsoft Outlook. You open up your email and you have an inbox full of stuff that you want to copy over to another folder somewhere, and so you click it and drag it. Well, anyone who's used to doing it that way knows that when you click and drag, it moves the item. So it removes it from the inbox and puts it somewhere else. So now it's not in the inbox anymore. Well, what if you like using your inbox as like a little memory tickler to say, hey, don't forget about doing this and follow up on that? Well, you just removed the item that's going to remind you. Well, if you right click and drag, something else happens. Go try it. And then, of course, there's double right clicking. And this is kind of rare, honestly. I don't see this except in like high-end graphics programs where people are using special mice and things. But regardless, right click, double right click can actually lead to some more options that you might not be used to. So you might want to try that in a couple of programs. Not your standard Office-y stuff, but try it. It never hurts. You know, if you're a 5-year-old, you're going to try it anyway. And then, of course, we have our standby right clicking. You'd be amazed how many people don't understand the beauty and power and simplicity of right clicking. Alright, it is very powerful. As a matter of fact, it's incredibly powerful, and it's also very underused. I don't know why, because if people use this, it is really your ultimate shortcut in any program. Anyone who follows the standard, kind of the worldwide standard of programming, knows that you right click and you get what's called a shortcut or a context menu. There's a lot of different ways of referring to this, but it pops up a little menu with some items that are really quick, short items directly related to whatever it was you clicked on. So if you right click on a word in a word processor, even on the web-based things like Google Docs, you'll see that you can spell check and other items that are there. So, you know, cutting and pasting and all that. Inside spreadsheet programs like Microsoft Excel, you can choose paste special or other items that you ordinarily just wouldn't see. Here's a neat example. You're going from Office 2003 or earlier to Office 2007. Well, for those that haven't taken the Office 2007 initiation type courses yet, everything changes in 2007. For instance, there is no file drop-down menu, so you know when you say file save or file print, it's gone. It's just not there. It's all been replaced by a thing called the ribbon. And unless you know where everything is on the ribbon, it's kind of funny to watch, but even people that have been using it for years will sit down and in about 5 seconds go, how do I save? How do I open a new document? Because they don't have anything they're used to seeing, which is all under like the file menu. Well, with that file menu gone, a lot of people are lost. They're just stranded thinking, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? I can't do anything in this program. Well, if you had been, for instance, using your right click on the mouse for years, you would know that you could right click and make things happen. You can right click and print. You can right click and save. You can right click and do a lot of stuff. And it's all pretty much the same choices. I mean, there's one or two new things in the right click menu, but all the old stuff stays. They don't really get rid of it. So it'd just be like any other day. So you'd actually stay functional, which is kind of the goal, isn't it? So from program to program in different operating systems, like on a Macintosh and even on the Linux boxes like I like to use, you're not going to see this right click thing go away. It's really powerful. Even in new versions of all this stuff, like I said, in 2007's version, the right click still means the same thing. Now we get into this hidden third button. All right, what the heck is that? Well, it's when you use both buttons, you get these third button functions. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, yeah, we know. All right, a long time ago when that movie was out, probably the first time, it was actually normal to have a three-button mouse. And if you've never seen one before, just ask and I'll show you one. All right, it's pretty much extinct in most Windows programs. It doesn't exist anymore. Macs, of course, we know have always had one button, and it's kind of a shame because it's kind of hard to even right-click with a single mouse button. But that was the way Macs were brought out a long time ago. And actually, Macs were kind of the thing that made mice or mouses, I don't know what the plural is, made them kind of the standard. So in any case, to really get true third button functionality, you kind of have to use free open source software or Linux or Linux-based things. And that's how you're going to see some of the third button options. But there's still graphics programs and other programs that use them. If you run into any of these programs, you might want to try the right-click functionality and see what there is. To do that with a two-button mouse, you just hit the left and right buttons at the same time. Of course, if you're a 5-year-old or an 80-year-old, it might be a little bit difficult, but give it a shot. Scroll wheel, everybody's favorite after they've used it. When people first started using scroll wheels and the first time you use one, you might think, gosh, this is clunky, it's so hard, it's always in the way. Every time I don't want to scroll, it's scrolling. Well, you'll get used to it, all right? With the scroll wheel, you can go up and down, left and right. You can even click scroll where you push down on the scroll wheel and it clicks. So when you click that, it turns it on to where you don't even have to scroll. You just move your mouse up and down. And as you move your mouse up, it scrolls up. When you move it down, it scrolls down. Or left, it goes to the left. Right, it goes to the right. So you can go up, down, left, and right by scroll button. Also, if you take your mouse and stick it right there on one of these scroll bars, you can scroll up and down with the wheel, but when your mouse is inside their mouse pointer in some programs, you can scroll up and down, but left and right as well. So as you put your mouse pointer right where the tip of this arrow is, try that. Go inside of like a spreadsheet and scroll and see if you can go up and down, left and right. One last powerful thing, amazingly powerful, that hardly anybody ever does, is using keys from the keyboard. You can select multiple items. You can even change the way things are copied and moved. Just by adding a key from the keyboard, you can incredibly change the way you interact with your programs. Try the most commonly used keys, all right? Control. Control clicking is amazing if you've never tried this. Like if you're in a list of things or a bunch of photos you just downloaded and you don't want all of them, you just want like the first one, the third one, and the fifth one. You don't want the second and third or second and fourth. You just kind of want a few of them. You click the first one, just single click it. Then hold your control key down on your keyboard. Hold it down, keep it down, and click again on some other item. It'll highlight that item as well, and nothing in between. If you control click another item, it'll turn that one on without turning any other items on. Regardless, when you do control clicking, it does it kind of one at a time, turns them on and off, toggles them. If you do shift and you click the first item, and then say you go to the bottom and you shift and click again, it'll highlight everything in between. For those folks that have Microsoft Outlook and have 1,000 email in their inbox, and there's only really about 10 of them that really mean anything, the rest of it's all spammy kind of stuff, you can click the first item and go all the way down to the bottom and hold down the shift key and click the last item. It'll highlight everything in that inbox. And then when you do that, I tell them to go back in with the control key, hold the control key down and deselect, so unclick those items you want to keep. And then when you hit the delete key, or if you right click, don't forget to right click, you can delete all that spammy stuff in one shot. And then you're left with only the things that you unclicked or unselected with the control key. And of course, our buddy these go in a triplet, the Control, the Shift, and the Alt. Try the Alt key too, especially if you're in Adobe products or any kind of graphic program or paint kind of thing, where you're doing Photoshop-y things. Try the Alt key, because that also does modification of the way the mouse works, like zoom in becomes zoom out, things like that. Select means deselect or select even more. So anyway, try Control, Shift, and Alt with everything that you do with your mouse. Thank you so much. This has been a nice short little lunch lesson, and this is an example of the many other lunch lessons we have. Some of the topics we talked about was free and open source software, using Microsoft, and doing keyboard shortcuts. And I highly recommend that you check into those classes that we offer also. Thank you very much.